Outside of the Chaos Wastes, there's perhaps no land in the Warhammer setting more magically charged than the elven homeland of Ulthuan. As the various winds of magic slowly wind their way towards the great vortex sitting at the floating island's heart, they alter the lands they touch. Some of these changes are subtle, taking the form of minor light shows or auditory illusions. Others are substantially more impressive, such as the legendary Flamespyres. These pillars of enchanted gypsum burn with an eternal flame, kindled by the wind of fire, or Akshi, as it flows towards the vortex. As the Flamespyre stand vigil over the shrine of Asurion, the phoenixes of Ulthuan have made it their home. The immense birds have watched over their god's temple for generations, and they have been changed as a result. The continual gusts of Akshi blowing over the phoenixes dwelling there have made them deeply attuned to magic, particularly fire magic, over the centuries. Known as Flamespyre phoenixes, these avian beasts are implacable foes of the forces of chaos and undeath. When raised to anger, a Flamespyre phoenix's plumage will ignite. In addition to making them nearly immune to fire, this makes them much more dangerous in close combat. The bird's beak and talons will become infused with flame, letting them slay regenerating monsters with ease. Even creatures that don't rely upon such tricks can find themselves overmatched by their onslaught. Bloodthirsters have been known to fall before the fury of an enraged Flamespyre phoenix. As if the threat of being burnt to a crisp by their talons wasn't enough, anyone the phoenix passes over is at risk of being consumed by their fiery wake. These flames can immolate entire regiments of soldiers, their bodies reduced to ash in mere seconds. Even if they weren't giant birds of war, this ability alone would make Flamespyre phoenixes incredibly fearsome. While their fiery appearance makes their connection to the wind of Akshi obvious, Flamespyre phoenixes are deeply attuned to all of the winds of magic. This magical nature gives them a degree of protection against all attacks, with weapons being deflected by some unseen force, bouncing harmlessly off their hides, or melting into slag upon contact with their flames. In addition, their power ebbs and flows depending on how fiercely the winds of magic blow. This can be a bit of a double-edged sword at times. If a region is bereft of magic, the phoenix's strength will decrease, and their magical defenses will falter. When the winds pick up, however, a Flamespyre phoenix will find itself reinvigorated by the gusts of magic. This effect increases in potency with the ferocity of the winds, and in the most extreme situations the phoenix becomes almost impossible to harm as their magical protection is bolstered to new heights. If a Flamespyre phoenix is somehow slain, they explode in an immense detonation, leaving behind nothing but a pile of smoldering ashes. While flashy, this explosion is unlikely to hurt those surrounding the phoenix when it dies. The same cannot be said of the beast's ashes, which will occasionally flare to blistering life and scorch those who draw too near. Sometimes, these ashes will burn for a time, before eventually dying down and becoming little more than glowing embers. At others, however, something decidedly more magical happens. If the phoenix is lucky and magic is thick in the sky, the bird will return to life in an explosive flash of light. Few things are more disheartening for the minions of chaos than slaying a Flamespyre phoenix, only to see it be reborn mere minutes later. Flamespyre phoenixes, while intelligent and proud, cannot speak. They understand the High Elven language well enough, though, and can be bargained with if treated with proper respect. Indeed, the Phoenix Guard have negotiated a standing agreement with the birds and will often call them into battle. Some Flamespyre phoenixes will even let the leaders of the Phoenix Guard ride them into battle as mounts, their reckless fury being reined in and focused with laser-like precision by the anointed of Asurion. In Total War Warhammer, Flamespyre phoenixes occupy a weird niche on the High Elf roster. Since dragons can be taken as their own unit, phoenixes have to compete with them in terms of cost-effectiveness and their role in their army. They are both flying monsters after all. The comparison is not favorable for the Flamespyre. While they are cheaper than Sun Dragons, the cheapest High Elf dragon, it's only by 250 gold. In return, the Sun Dragon is much better. It has higher stats in almost every regard, with only the Phoenix's speed and leadership surpassing the Sun Dragons. The dragon's higher armor, melee defense, and missile resistance makes it far more durable than the Flamespyre Phoenix, and its offensive stats are still a little better than the bird's. In addition to that, the Sun Dragon has its breath weapon, and is generally better at dealing with both infantry and monsters in melee combat. So what does the Flamespyre Phoenix bring to the table? Well, they are incredibly fast. With a speed of 120, they can duke missiles and catch nearly anything in the game with equal ease. They can't necessarily kill it, but they can definitely catch it. Also, their special abilities are pretty nice. The Wake of Fire ability, that thing that can reduce infantry blobs to ash, is a small radius bombardment that the Phoenix can unleash. This absolutely devastates lightly armored infantry. This makes them really good at punishing blobs in the early game when most factions haven't unlocked their heavily armored options. Secondly, a Flamespyre Phoenix gets a 10% ward save when your Winds of Magic reserve are higher than 10, though this doesn't compensate for the otherwise lower defensive stats. Finally, while the Phoenix dies way easier than a dragon, it also has the potential to heal itself when it reaches a certain hit point threshold. This healing is huge, potentially restoring 25% of the monster's hit points in a single second. Of course, there's also a 50% chance that the Phoenix miscasts this and just dies, which is a bit of a bummer. All in all, I would say they're not great. While I love using Tyrion's initial Flamespyre Phoenix in his campaign, I can't think of a scenario where I would actually get to the point where I could recruit one and then use it over a dragon. Unless you really want to do a Phoenix-themed army, which is pretty cool, leave them on the army selection screen. With that bit of completely unqualified advice given, we've concluded our overview of the Flamespyre Phoenix. Not Phoenixes as a whole, no, we still have 2 more varieties of them to cover at some point in the future. But that's all I have on the Fire version. Flamespyres were the first monstrous unit I played with in Total War Warhammer 2, and I have a big soft spot for them as a result. It's a shame that they're kind of bad in comparison to their fellow High Elf monsters. If CA wanted to buff them, they could make their Attuned to Magic ability stronger, giving them a 20 or 30% ward save, but raising the Winds of Magic power reserve required to trigger it. This would make them a pretty tanky bird, which I think would be pretty neat. Not every unit can be a winner though, so I get it if they don't want to do that. That's all I have for today though, so until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.